So here we have it. After about a day of sitting on the counter, the cream and the yogurt's kind of done its magic, as well as a little bit of time. If you take a closer look, I don't know if you can see it from here, right? But there's a film now that's developed at the top, right? And if I use my spatula gently, you see it pulled back like a skin. Okay, and that's what you want. So now we're ready for mixing. We really wouldn't, I tried going longer than 24 hours before. It really hasn't worked. I think that's pretty much the maximum amount of time that you should go. Careful in the summertime because houses are warmer, there's more humidity. So the longer that you leave a dairy product out, the better chance something is going to start to spoil. Or you might end up developing some type of mold. It did happen to me once. I ended up having to throw everything out. First thing that you're going to need is you're going to need some type of mixer. It doesn't have to be anything extra special. I've had this for quite a while. Had it for at least 15 years and it still works and it's still pretty fantastic. Just a standard stainless steel bowl that attaches to the mixer. You may have a question about what kind of paddle you're going to use. Just use a standard one. Don't need to use the whipping paddle or the dough paddle or anything like that, just the standard paddle, right? It also comes really handy with the KitchenAid though, is that you actually have a splash guard as well. I'm going to show you how you're going to be able, splash guard. So I'm going to show you how you're going to be able to use it with the mixer. There's going to be a lot of splashing, especially once it starts to come together, the butter. For the demonstration, I took out 2 stainless steel bowls, right? One we're going to use for after we make the butter, we're going to drain off the buttermilk, right? And we're going to hold that in the one, and then we're going to dump the butter into the other. Okay? So, you need a strainer, some type of simple strainer, and the spatula is probably a pretty good idea. This can be a little tricky. I've had splashback before. You might want to use a large spoon to do this. I usually don't. There we go. Let's see. Maybe we can get all of it. Yep, we can get all of it. There we go. Now at the bottom, you'll see that we've got some leftover yogurt as well. There's a rim around and that's from the skin before. Get your spatula. You don't want to lose any of this, right? And just run it around and get everything into your mixing bowl. Right? Now, careful when you're filling up your mixing bowl, depending upon how much cream and yogurt you have, you might fill up your mixing bowl too high. Try to keep it under 2/3 full, and you're going to see why. We're going to be mixing it at a pretty high speed. There we go. And when it starts to coagulate, you'll start to get some splashback. Air will be incorporated in and it'll just make a big huge mess. There we go. Put your paddle on. Okay. Take your splash guard. Important. Put it over top. On this one we can raise the bowl into position and then get your silicone, right? On the long strip, enough to be able to wrap itself all the way around. So I go behind the bowl, I pull it through, bring it to the one side, there we go. Don't forget to do something like this. First time that I did it, I learned that it's a good idea to always do this. Okay, So that part's done, and the next part is start. Start at a lower speed, right? So I've got it on stir. It'll go on 2, and then eventually I'll put it on at around 8. My machine goes up to 10, okay? This will take to make, right? So I've got it on stir. It'll go on 2, and then eventually I'll put it on at around 8. My machine goes up to 10, okay? This will take to make anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes. You'll start to see it turn into a type of whipping cream. From the whipping cream, it overly whips, and that's when it starts to coagulate. That's when all the fats start to come together, and that's where your butter is formed. Okay, so it's only been a few minutes, maybe about 5 minutes. And I don't know if you can see it on the side of the bowl, but the cream came off of the splash guard. And now you're starting to see that it's getting washed off. It's actually happening. The buttercream is separated and starting to wash off the splash guard. That's a really good sign if you can't see inside of what's happening. But I like to try to get as much of the fat out of the buttermilk or the cream. And then I like to slow it down so I can combine all the little particles of fat together into more of a uniform solid piece. It'll be a little bit easier to be able to wash afterwards and work with as well. Okay, so that part is done. So normally what I'll do is I'll end up taking this, the finished product, nicely bring it down, right? Take off your paddle, and then transfer it directly to the sink. But for you, I'll show you what this looks like now that we're done. Maybe a little bit messy. Here. So unwrap the plastic. There we go. Take off the splash guard. Alright. And I don't know if you can see that, but this is more or less the finished product. It was that easy. It only took a few minutes. It's a few minutes of prep time, and it's a few minutes of working, and I don't know, just a day of waiting, not doing anything, just let nature take its course. Okay, so it's got a really nice yellow color. When you're making butter, sometimes it happens that it's a little bit more pale or white, sometimes it's a little bit more yellow. It all depends on the season. The color of your butter is affected by what the cows are eating. If they're eating from the pasture, you're going to get a little bit more of a yellow color. Milk is, well, it's never frozen, it's never preserved, so pretty much you're getting it straight from the cow when you buy it at the grocery store. If you like a certain color, or if you prefer a certain type of flavor, maybe choose the season that you're making your butter and hold it for a year, 6 months, wait till the next spring. Slight differences, I'm not really that detailed in it. But yeah, definitely you'll notice a difference between making butter out of cream in the wintertime or making it in throughout the summer or the spring. This is where I'm going to put the butter that I collected. I get my sieve. I get my stainless steel bowl. Put it over top. Take your messy hand, like mine. There we go. So you're really using the sieve just to catch the big blobs of butter. That's all you're really doing. Okay, you don't have to get all the buttermilk up because we just want the majority of it. Oh, there we go. Okay, that part's done. So, from those original 3 containers, what we have now is, I'll wait later, but we've got a tremendous amount of butter, and that's how much. And we've got about that much of buttermilk, right? So you can use that for cooking, you can use that for baking, you can use that for other things if you have a use for it. It's no point of wasting it. I don't know what they charge for buttermilk at the supermarket because, well, we never buy it, but I'm sure you're going to pay a premium for it. As same thing as you paid for the butter. Okay, From here, I'm going to wash the butter. Okay, here we go. Now we've put the butter in the bowl, which is now in the sink. Set your water at cold. Let it run. We're going to start what they call washing, right? What sometimes you'll hear is they'll say, wash it 3 times until the water is pretty much clear. I've never experienced that. It's always taken more than that for me. Okay, so I'm going to show you what it looks like when you start washing it. So now I've added water. I don't know if you guys can see this, but it's really opaque inside, so you really can't see my fingers. That's what you want to get rid of. Now, the reason is not because it's unhealthy or it's wrong. It's simply because if you leave the buttermilk inside of it, it'll spoil more quickly. So if you want to use fresh butter that day that you just made that day for something, for a recipe, for baking, you don't necessarily need to remove it. In fact, actually I just thought of that. With some of the recipes for baking that require butter and buttermilk, you may not want to take it out. Maybe it'll add another, well, that's a good idea. Maybe somebody can try that if they like to bake and let me know how that works out. Okay, so add the water, right? And just massage what you've got in the bowl. Bring it all together. And just pour it out. Okay, so I'm going to be doing this, well, at least a few times. And I can get a little aggressive with it as well. I've already massaged it, emptied it 4 or 5 times, right? And if you can see from over there, right, the water's clear, so you can look straight at the butter. Pretty much all the buttermilk is gone. I'm sure there's something left, but it really doesn't matter at this point. I got most of it. Okay. Next stage is going to be draining the water out of it. There we go. And it's more or less just massaging it again, right? Like kneading a dough. Squeeze it, get out all those little air pockets, those little pockets of water. And just keep working it. Press pause. Okay, so I've tried to get as much water out of it as possible. It's still kind of warm, so it's kind of difficult to be able to work with. So I don't know if you can see this, but there's some water that's still coming out, and that's dripping out. All right, that's okay for what we're going to do next. Right? My suggestion is use a good quality salt, Mediterranean salt, pink salt I've used before. That works really well. Be careful about how coarse it is. I've used a coarse kosher salt, and it really didn't kind of blend into the butter. It was kind of cool where you would get these crunches of salt, but it wasn't proper salted butter. Obviously, if you don't want salt in it, you don't need to do this step, right? Don't use iodized salt. Use a good quality sea salt, Mediterranean salt, something like that. So here we go. Now, it's pretty generous, right? But what happens is that the flavor mellows out as it sits and as you massage it, right? Pretty simple, just work it like a dough, right? It's a good idea to have somebody taste test for you. Like I said, the kids love it, so it's usually a fight between both, and they both end up getting some anyways, so it really doesn't matter. Right? I've got one of the kids over here, so I'm going to ask her to give it a try. Tina, can you try some, please? More or less salt? Well, more salt, or is it enough?
It's enough.
Not any more?
Yeah.
Okay, well, the boss said no more. Right? So I'm going to keep mixing. Okay. And once we're done, yeah, that looks nice. Okay, good. No extra water, everything got blended, no problem. Right? We're going to start wrapping it. I'm going to try to do this with one hand. So take a strip of plastic wrap, right? And you're going to do it pretty much like kind of the way you do a sausage. Well, a different type of sausage. There we go. Okay. Grab some butter, right? Kind of get it into shape already, and just drop it in the middle. You can do smaller amounts. This is a smaller amount. Usually what I'll end up doing is I'll do a complete log, like this, right? Stick it in the fridge, it firms up. I put it in the freezer. If I need some, right, I'll just cut off a portion of the log and put the rest back in the freezer. All right, and that large, the part that I cut off, part of it is in the fridge and the rest is on the counter. Okay, now that I've done that, I'm going to show you how I wrap it. Here, just clean this up. This is a lot easier when you're right beside the sink. There we go, that's good enough. Okay, fold it over. Fold the other side back towards you, right? And try to push any air gently out of the plastic. There we go. Looks pretty good. Right? And give it a spin. There we go. Right? The only thing left that you need to do is just put it in the refrigerator. It firms up pretty quickly. It's solid fat, and then put it in the freezer. So you can have a bunch of these just sitting in the freezer, ready to go, or in the fridge. And this is how much I have left. This much butter. Retail, I've seen it at some specialty delicatessens. They're charging well, loads of money. They're charging for what I would make, let's say a pound of butter, they're charging $15. It's cost me a hell of a lot less than that. And it's artisan, it's homemade, I know exactly what it went into it. And we did it together and it only took a few minutes. So I hope you enjoyed my little demonstration on how to make butter, and let me know how it worked out for you. Thanks.